Okay, so now I'll walk you through the head swap assignment. First thing you want to do is download the two pictures from the GIMP unit materials folder in Classroom. The Curly Howard picture, which you see in front of us here, and the Neil Armstrong picture. We'll start out working on the Neil Armstrong picture. Our goal is to get Curly's head right there. So make sure we don't break anything. We'll of course duplicate the layer, hide, and lock down that bottom one. Don't need to do anything to it, ideally. If we do things right, it'll still be there at the end, and we didn't need it at all. So on Neil, the first thing we need to do, for lack of a better word, is remove his head. We're not going to actually chop the head off, but what we're going to do is kind of cover where it would be. To do that, we'll grab a little piece of the moon with the rectangular marquee tool, rectangular select. Select that, Control C, Control V. It's going to be on a floating layer. We're not going to make it a true layer yet. We're just going to move around a bit with it. Keep pasting it in. You see, we can paste in a lot just on this layer. Cover up Neil's head. So that we can bring in a new head. Note that we're not touching the spacesuit at all. The spacesuit you want to leave there if at all possible. You don't want to touch that one bit because we need it there. And I think with that we are all set. Now you can turn it into a real layer. Now you see that we're pasted in there, especially if we zoom in, it looks like we pasted something in there. This is why I teach the healing tool and the clone tool before this lesson, because once you know that, you look at this and say, oh, I know how to fix this. Healing tool. I'm going to go to a slightly larger brush size though. There we are. Control to grab a source, and then we can start painting over. Let's merge down first. Control, we'll grab a source, and then we can start painting over. I think I'm eliminating those seams. Those out of the way, suddenly things are going to get pretty easy. Okay, there we go. Now we're getting somewhere. The nice thing about the moon as a background is you want kind of a rough surface anyway, so it's going to suit our purposes nicely. All right, that's all set. Next, what we're going to need is this color picture in black and white. It is far easier to go from color to black and white than it is to go from black and white to color. At the very end of the unit, one of the last lessons you will do is actually colorizing a picture. And you'll see going to black and white is a lot easier than going from black and white to color. How do we get this to black and white? Well, we're going to go up to the menu bar, choose Colors, Desaturate, and then just Desaturate. Click OK. We have a black and white picture. So now we're all set. We'll go over to Curly, and we now need ready to bring the head in. You're not going to find a more level-headed person in the Command a Space mission than what you're seeing here. We'll use a scissors tool to grab Curly's head all the way around. Because it's black and white, you don't have much color differentiation, so the fuzzy select, the magic wand tool, that's not going to work too well. In my own opinion, the best tool to use is going to be scissors and go slightly inboard on his head so it finds the edge, doesn't grab that white area. I grab a little of his neck, don't have to grab it all. I'm not going to want that tie. Then we can go around here. Got it. Control C to copy it. Go back over to our Neil picture and Control V to paste it in. We have a ton of issues we have to deal with though. First off, beyond the fact it's on a fake layer, it's too bright. It's also too large. So we have to fix that. First things first, put it on its own layer. Curly's head. There we go. Okay. We'll use the move arrow to move it in position. Far too large for what we need here. We'll go to the scale tool to go a little bit more about how to use the scale tool here. You see you have right now you have the width and height of this in pixels. I like to go to percent. Because here, let's try at a 50%, and I think that's going to be a good size. That looks about right. I'm going to go with it for now and move it in position, see if it wants to work. Okay, so I'll move it in there first. I'll rotate it, put this. You want to rotate it slightly to the right, to your left-hand side. The angle I think I recommended on the screen was -15, but if it goes a little less, you can work with that too. I'm going to go with -10. That's too much of a lean. That's better. Right. Now, one of the problems people often have with this assignment, and the biggest mistake I see going through, is what I call the giraffe neck. That's a giraffe neck. This is not good. You don't want him to look like a giraffe. His head plainly needs to be a bit lower. So we'll go ahead and we got the Curly's head layer. We're going to drag it downward a bit. Make sure the position looks good. You're going to see some little edges in there that we need to clean up. We will clean those up. And we got it where it needs to be. Okay. Now, if you also look carefully, you see how Neil's arm is a bit darker there. Look how bright Curly's head is. We need to work with the brightness of both layers. So to do that, on the layer here with Curly's head, we'll go to Colors, and we're going to choose Brightness Contrast to start out with. Try and work with the brightness of his face, turn it down a little bit so it matches what you're seeing on the arm. Okay, got it. You can also go down to the bottom layer and work the brightness upward so that it would then work the other way. The arm would be brighter, try and match the face a little bit. This looks pretty good right now. We can go with this. As we zoom in, we'll see lots of areas where we need to do some fixing, especially around the neck area here. We need to make the neck part of Curly's head here. So what we'll do is we'll hide the Curly head layer for a moment. We'll go in with our scissors and we're going to grab the neck. We need to go on multiple layers to do this, so we need to have the neck selected as well as Curly's head, and we then have to merge them down so they're on the same layer. Okay, so we'll go ahead and select this. Control-C to copy it. Control-C to copy. I was on the wrong layer. Control-V to paste it. Do new layer. Just for purposes of knowing what it is, I'll name that neck. Now we want to merge the Curly's head and neck layer. So we can, for lack of a better word, we can put them together. So I'll go ahead and merge down. Wrong name is on there. Curly's head. There we go. Now you might say, okay, I can just use the healing tools on this. We can do a little better than the healing tools for this, though. Over the bottom here, you'll see Blur, Sharpen, and Smudge. Smudge is the one I like to use on this because that can actually clean things up pretty quickly. I'll go to about 13. There we go. Look how that harsh line suddenly becomes a lot softer. I'm going to go blur. I'm going to switch to the blur tool. I think I can blur the darkness of the neck down into the lightness of the Neil's neck. There we go. And we almost got it. Okay, let's start zooming out, see what we got so far. That's not too bad. One of the other things you can do also is you can go to the blur tool and the smudge tool to help work on the dark edges of the head there. See how it's got some weird lightness there? You go to blur, actually you can darken those a bit so it doesn't look like there's nearly as solid a cut line as what there was before. If you see someone that has plainly put a head in there, that's one thing you want to try to be careful of is you'll see a rather dramatic crop line there, like something I brought in that really shouldn't have. You see some spots here where it's not that great, but after all, this is the first time you've done this. I wouldn't sweat that right there. We've got the head looking like it belongs. However, we do see a problem here. Take a look at that spacesuit. This is not Neil Armstrong anymore. This is Curly Howard. So we're going to need to go in and work on that name tag. We'll zoom in on the name tag, and we'll again use our clone tool to grab weight off the spacesuit and use that to paint over the name tag. Try to avoid leaving a ghost image. Like right now, if I did this, there's some pretty serious ghosting on the R. You want to try and make sure you don't leave a spot that plainly looks like the name that was originally there. If you want to go back down the original layer and look at this, you notice that the name wasn't perfectly straight. We will have to do some tweaking to make the name look right. Next thing to do, we'll grab the text box. Text box right there. All caps, we'll type Howard. Way too big, just pick the whole thing, press Control A, and then start playing with the font size. As you saw, it was a very simple font. So you want something that's just plain block letters, easy to read. I'm going to go with the default sans serif, but there are some other ones that you can dig through here and find that will work. So we'll go with that. There. Okay. Okay, text box is down to its proper size. Be sure you get the text. You see these little sizing handles in the text box. Use that to shrink the text box down to its full size, because the next step is going to be a little tricky if you don't. So we're all set with that. Now we can go to our move command. Put that up in position, and still a little large, so we now go over to scale. Shrink that down a little bit. Move. Okay, so we got that in position there, but remember, this is not on a flat surface. It's a little bit of a wavy surface because spacesuits are kind of bulky. So we're going to need to work with that. So we want to go to Tools, Transform Tools, and then play with a few of these. I'm going to use Perspective. Okay, turn that a little bit so it looks like it's a little. Tools, Transform Tools, Shear. Put that way. So you want to play with it a little bit so it looks like it's sitting on clothing and not just flat. But once you got to your satisfaction, that is all set, and that gets handed in. Once you've done that, get a fresh copy of the Neil Armstrong picture. Ideally, you haven't saved over it. And then you can take whoever you want and make them an astronaut as well. As you see from my sample one, I had some fun with Abe Lincoln and also putting a cat on there. If you do something that's not human, it gets a little tricky because you have to play with the arm down here. If you really want a challenge, if you think you can do more than this, I put a picture of the whole Apollo 3 crew, all 3 men, on the class drive as well. So you can grab that and then say, okay, I don't want to replace one head, I want to replace 3. It's possible. If you want to play with it and challenge yourself, I think it's a wonderful idea. Thanks, and I'll talk to you soon.